For this video, I'm going to be taking a look at a deck that I think is a great fit for the new Kalista. During my patch review video, I had talked about how I was really excited to try the new Kalista out. I don't think she's necessarily top tier, but she's at least not as bad or as garbage as she was before. And of the different lists I had tried, this one ended up being the best fit. This list is likely going to look pretty familiar because this is essentially the Prankster aggro list, but instead of using Augmented Experimenter and Jinx as the top end of your package, I have made this almost play like Warlock Zoo if you're coming from Hearthstone by adding in Kalista and then also Chempunk Pickpocket. Pickpocket's there to kind of help you with generating just value and cards. It's also a great card that if you flip Kalista, is annoying for your opponents if it keeps coming back because they don't want to block that card, but they don't want to give you free stuff either. So we'll go through the list and kind of talk about inclusions. 2, Ravenous Butcher. This is here for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it helps you flip Cursed Keeper. I say flip, I mean sacrifice it, turn it into the 4/4. But also it's a great way for you to get those Prankster triggers later on. Hapless Aristocrat is just a solid 1-drop, and with the last breath giving you another body, just helps you feed Prankster. Mark of the Isles did get adjusted, however, I'm finding it still entirely viable at 2. You'd like it to be a +3 damage, but at, +2/+2, it still gets the job done. And honestly, the giving ephemeral is still somewhat relevant because it can mean additional Prankster triggers and it's additional ways to, kill your Cursed Keeper, that sort of thing. Boom Crew Rookie is still insane if you're playing an aggressive list. You want this card in it. It's great. Chempunk Pickpocket. So this is one of the new additions. I like this card for a number of reasons. It blocks other fearsome units very early on. It makes it so your opponent kind of wants to block this, which can sometimes help out other value picks. Like if you've got an Elise and a Pickpocket both attacking and your opponent can only block one, they kind of have to pick their poison. As I said before, it's also a great card to potentially keep bringing back if you do manage to flip Kalista. And I do want to say real quick that this list isn't designed to always flip Kalista. I think that the best way to do that is with some sort of ephemeral package. However, it does happen, I would say, 30 to 40% of the time in games, and it's very relevant when it does. And this is a great card to come back. Moving on here, we still have Cursed Keeper because it's just part of our kind of zoo-ish package. Elise is here because we still run a number of ways to potentially flip her. We've got the Aristocrat, we've got the Vile Feast coming later. We aren't running the Arachnid. Arachnid was one of the other cards I was considering in this slot, but ultimately I felt like Pickpocket's Nexus Strike makes him a little bit more threatening than just going straight for the Fearsome. But Elise is still good enough to get the job done, and at the end of the day, her making the extra spider gives you another body that potentially fuels your Prankster, and that's also very beneficial. So we still have Glimpse Beyond. This is just the marquee card for this deck. Realistically, it helps you kill things, keeps your hand full. It's a fantastic Shadow Isles card. I can't imagine running a Shadow Isles deck that doesn't want to run Glimpse Beyond, so it's in here. Mystic Shot, like Glimpse Beyond, is kind of one of the marquee cards, but for P and Z, Piltover and Zon. Gives you direct damage on a Nexus, can clear out threats, etc., etc. Vile Feast, kind of right up there with many of our other Shadow Isle tools. It's pretty much a staple at this point. Does a lot of things for this list, but it gives us another body for Prankster, helps out Elise. Get Excited, only running 2 of these, but this is kind of meant to be your either finisher or your panic removal. If they play something that needs to be answered, a lot of times those things are like 3 health, like a Heimerdinger, for example, so you can get that out of the way. Otherwise, it's just 3 damage to the Nexus. Kalista, again, the new addition. The 4/3 Fearsome on her has been nice. The other nice thing about Kalista here is that you're not really running a lot of 3-drops. Your only other 2 3-drop competition, if you will, for like on-curve plays are Cask Salesman, which is very rarely an on-curve play, and then the Prankster itself. So very often Kalista is just a nice easy curve play, and if it's not going to be Kalista, or maybe you have both of these in your hand, then at least you can kind of feel for how the game is going and go with the one that's going to make the most sense. But the reality is that I think Kalista benefits the most from jumping into this list simply because there's not a lot of other things that you're trying to play in that slot. I think that her biggest downfall is that in many ways she's competing with Zeds or she's competing with Frenzied Skitterers, and in those situations I think she's still like not as good. But in an aggressive list where you just don't have a lot of 3-drops, especially proactive 3-drops, she's great. Alright, so Phantom Prankster is kind of the linchpin of this list. This gives you reach to finish off your opponents. It can sometimes make or break the mirror, which feels really weird. It sounds weird, right? Because you're taking essentially a turn off by developing a 0-3. However, in an aggressive mirror, if you play this, but then you're forced to block and trade a lot in that aggressive mirror just to slow them down, getting that incidental damage in often makes this card hit for, 4, 5, 6 damage, and it totally makes up for the cost investment. Plus, in an absolute pinch, you can still block with it in the aggressive mirror as well. Like, you have to put it in danger, obviously, right? So if your opponent has a combat trick, you might lose the Prankster, but if they're out of mana or something, you can pretty safely, throw it in front of an Aristocrat or even just a 2-drop and get it out there. And then the final card is Used Cask Salesman. This really helps your Prankster. This card also helps you flip Kalista. The most frequent way that you will flip Kalista is you'll play her on 3. Usually over the next turn or 2, you'll lose 1 or 2 creatures to combat, and then you'll play a Cask Salesman, and the ephemeral units, when they die, will then trigger Kalista, and then she's up and running, and it's fantastic. It's beautiful. And my favorite thing in the world is when the Cask Salesman dies, Kalista starts bringing this back whenever it attacks, and so it's like this race to see who dies first because you're both taking a ton of damage each turn, but it can be really annoying for your opponents and just honestly good fun. So this is the list that I have found new Kalista to be the most successful in. So we're going to do what we always do. Now that I've talked through the list, we're going to go play a game so that you can see the deck in action, get a feel for it. Again, if you've watched my other videos, you probably already kind of know how the deck's going to play out, but again, this is the Kalista version, so let's go play that game. So it looks like we might be walking into either an aggressive mirror or them playing some kind of discard. Throw those back, see if we can find a 1-drop. We only run the one real 1-drop. Oh, it's Nyman. We'll wave it, Nyman. We like our artifact friend. Oh, alright, fine.
I'll do better this time.
Alright, so they take the open. Go with the Boom Crew here.
A foray into the field? How exciting!
We really don't want them to...
I brought my books. Hope that's all right.
I was about to say we really don't want them to have 2 more 1-drops, but... So anything that draws them a card here is going to really suck. Or they're just going to go with the Get Excited, huh? We're going to just turn this into 6 damage. It's going to die anyway. So if it's going to die, we might as well get 6 damage. With no mana, we know they can't draw cards, so they can't block it with the Fearsome.
I hope this works. Okay, ready.
Yeah, I think this is probably correct. We can do this and then develop our Pickpocket. Follow that up next turn with maybe these 2 or this and a 2-drop. See what kind of damage we can push. Because if we can get them relatively low, or Get Excited might be able to get the job done here. The Mark is a good top deck because if they try to block with Jinx, it means we might be able to get rid of it.
What's that noise?
A little curious with the pass there. They're sitting on something good.
The teeth means they like you.
All right. Kind of a tough call. We want to get at least, I think, one round out of this. You have to make sure that it's attacking at the end, because if it hits the Nexus, it'll die after the ephemeral, and we want to get as much in as possible. Which is sadly not nearly enough. I think this is just going to end up being a loss, but we're going to play it out. 8, 7, 5. So again, we just need that 2 damage from somewhere. There's a Mystic Shot. So if we can survive this round, we might be able to just
I'll do better this time.
nuke in this direction. So this is going to probably pull my Aristocrat. So we're taking at least 3. This Mystic Shot. Mystic Shot top deck. Looking pretty good. I don't want to tip our hand though, so we're going to pass through. We got more than enough to play both next turn anyway. And this is a list that does not run Deny. And it does not run life gaining effects, so this should be it. Unless they have, with 2 cards, enough to burst us for 10. Spoiler alert, they don't. That'll be it. So, sadly, our Kalista only pushed to the 6 damage, but even just seeing the 4/3 body with the Fearsome, it's very relevant, you know? If our Kalista doesn't bite the dust there, then maybe things go a little bit different as well. But that's the list. Again, kind of just plays like Zoo. And when you get them low, a lot of times you are just trying to burst down that Nexus with Reach. Hopefully you check out the list, enjoy it. I'm actually really having a great time playing it, despite the fact that, you know, Kalista's not quite there yet. I don't think she's a marquee champion. I don't think that she is bad, though, either. She's no Zed, but I think that she's more in line with the other 3-drop champions that exist in the game, and I think that's good and healthy for her. So anyway, if you made it this far and you're still listening to me rant, God's bless you, Cthulhu bless you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the future, I guess.